recorded in the beautiful mountains of British Columbia. Welcome to
Friends on Horses.
Welcome back to Friends on Horses. I'm excited to introduce Cambie Gulick from Born Free Equine out of Rock Creek, BC, just a few hours from our podcast studio. Cambie specializes in equine herd management and is often called on locally to help with placing wild feral horses. Welcome to the podcast, Cambie.
Hi, ladies. Nice to meet you.
So I think we'll just kind of start at the beginning. I'm curious how you got into horse rescue.
So I've been around horses my whole life. I grew up, was born on a cattle ranch, and when I moved to the Okanagan, I started working with wild horses when I was young. One of the main ranch managers who deals with the horses on the reserve used to babysit me. So I grew up on his ranch and working with the wild horses. I trained my first wild horse when I was 11, and it piqued my interest for a long time. And about 4 years ago, I was on Facebook and I saw some posts about a roundup had happened and people were really upset because the horses were going to go to slaughter. And I reached out to the band member who had done the roundup, and his name had got posted online and phone number, and he received hundreds and thousands of calls and messages and death threats and everything. So I reached out and said, like, hey, like, I might be looking for a project. Like, what do you got? He's like, oh, well, you know where they are. Go look. And it's just because of the trust I'd built up from knowing them for years. So I went and I looked, and there was 11 babies. And I was like, okay. So I've connected with a few people who I knew were sort of interested, went there, took photos of the babies, and within an hour of being home, I had 7 out of 11 homed.
Wow.
So he didn't know this. I sort of did it behind his back. Called him, he's like, oh, which one do you want? I'm like, well, I'll take all the babies. And he was like, okay, but what do you mean you'll take all the babies? I'm like, well, I'll take all the babies. He was like, okay, whatever. So be it. Have fun. So I called him about a week later, and I'm like, so do you have any more babies? And he's like, you just took 11. I'm like, I don't have them anymore. And he's like, what do you mean you don't have them anymore? I'm like, well, they all have homes now. He's like, oh, okay. And he sort of shoved me off, whatever. About a week later, I called him again. So I just sort of kept on him and got to the point now where I don't have to call them. They call me. And it's expanded from one area to I deal with band members from Oliver, Soyas Indian Reserve, Penticton, and Karamias right now. And we're looking into working with OKIB, Okanagan Indian Band, which is more closer to Vernon. And I specialize mostly with the babies right now, and a lot of it's pretty much 2 and under, because the older the horse is, the harder it is for the horse to come around, and people need to be a lot more set up and ready for it. I know personally from my own horses, my 2 personal main horses are wildies. I have a now 10-year-old wildie out of the Cache Creek area, and he's my main everyday ranch horse. My 10-year-old competes in gymkhanas on him now.
Aww.
And then I also have a 6-year-old wildie out of Douglas Lake, who I actually got through Freedom's Gate. I work closely with them sometimes, and he's my other boy, and he's strong-willed, that's for sure. So I know what it's like when it comes to the older ones. I deal with a lot of them, because a lot of what doesn't get posted for sale and stuff is everything 3 to 6 years old. We have currently 25 horses, studs and geldings. We're working on gelding them all, in training in Osoyoos. So we have a facility in Osoyoos, and there's a crew of 7 of us that work with these horses and get them started and going. And a lot of them get used by one of the ranchers in the area and become guide horses for his dude string.
Okay.
Wow.
And eventually work their way into being dude horses in the future. We have years and years ago, his whole dude string was wild horses.
Wow.
But he took a little bit of hiatus from working with them, and all of a sudden we were running out of horses. So we're working on it again. Yeah, if all goes as planned, we're hoping that come June, I do believe, we might be holding sort of like a private auction to to sell some of the 25 wildies that we've been breaking this winter.
Wow.
So they'll all be started, they'll have trail miles, pushing cows miles, all that, and be selling them as ranch horses.
Wow. It sounds like, so, I think of you, Cambie, when I think of Born Free Equine, but there is quite a community that you have fostered to be able to make this doable, especially I'm thinking about the numbers of horses you're talking about dealing with. That's a lot of time and energy. You have to be good at building relationships with people in order to make Born Free Equine happen.
Yeah. I was lucky that I had the background where I did and knowledge and knowing some of these people for my whole life, and having that trust level there to start with has helped me be able to do this. But it is definitely, it's not something that anyone can walk into. We had a lady come out from the island last year, and I set her up with some interviews, which that was difficult to get them to agree to, because she was doing a research paper on the wild horses and herd management and stuff. And she ended up getting some really amazing information, but it definitely took some pulling of strings to make them let somebody in.
Right.
It's a very closed group.
Yeah.
Wow. So Born Free Equine, you kind of talked a little bit about your how the interest got fostered, right? When did you make the leap from this is something I feel really passionate about to I'm going to create Born Free Equine and devote all of my time and energy and resources into this project? How did that come to be?
So it all started about 4 years ago, when I found out about the first big roundup that people were freaking out about. I originally started this under a different name, and it was BC Wildies, but due to some person issues, I started to lose my passion in it. There was too many people starting to get involved, and it was we were going backwards instead of forwards. And so I sort of walked away, and the Born Free name actually comes from, well, the wild horses, they're born free out on the range. And my mom used to laugh and say that I was born free. I'm her little wild child.
Aww.
So that's how the Born Free name came up. And so I've been at this now for 4 years, Born Free for the last 2-3 years. And in 4 years, I've homed 376 horses.
Wow.
Been
Wow.
quite the journey. And that doesn't include any of the surrender horses that come in, just that I personally will get phone calls asking if I can help.
And so approximately how many horses would you say you're rehoming per year? Because that's quite a big number, 300.
Yeah, it depends on the year, and it fluctuates. Some years are littler than others. Last year wasn't as many. This year's been a pretty decent year. But I'm running into issues now with they aren't finding homes as fast, which is in turn setting the band back a little bit. They don't want to see me get overwhelmed either. Like, they don't want to say, hey, here's 20 babies. Well, you can't find them home, so you now are stuck feeding them for a year or
Mm-hmm.
what. So, for example, I have 4 Wildie babies here right now looking for homes. Some of them have been here 30 days or more.
Mm-hmm.
I have 2 more babies sitting in a holding pen waiting for me to go get them so that they can get their chance. But I can't they won't let me pick them up until I at least get some more of these ones homed, right? Because the cost starts adding up pretty fast. I am not a registered society. I'm not a nonprofit, but I do this. I don't charge a bunch of money. I cover my costs as best as I can. Usually the fees for the Wildies, the bands say, okay, well, we want this much per baby. And that's usually comparable to what meat price is.
Right.
So if they were to not put them through me and just send them off, that's how much they would get, right? So I have to give them that much. And then usually there's a fee of about $50 that I charge, 50 to 75 on top of that fee. So right now, the 2 fees combined is about $350. But when you get into the fact that they've been here a month, right now, those 4 are going through a 1,400 pound round bale in about 8 days.
Woohoo!
Wow.
Yikes!
A
So
lot of
they're
fees.
gaining weight, but they're definitely enjoying the free choice food. But yeah, it's when you look at it that's almost 4 rounds that I've gone through since this crew's been here. So.
That's a hustle. Like you're having to hustle.
Oh yeah. So like the faster I can find them homes, the better, right? Because not only does it help secure things with the band, but it helps me keep my costs down. Because the only way I can do this is by keeping my costs as low as I can and covering costs. Like I'm not out selling them for $1,000 trying to make a bunch of money. It's like I just try and cover my costs, but I get into slower times like now, and I know that a lot of that cost isn't going to come back, right? So I that's part of the passion side comes in, and it's like, if I don't enjoy this, and putting myself in the hole sometimes, I wouldn't be able to do it.
Oh, you go for it.
What is the average kind of stay when you have horses come? Like, is it like a month? It was sounding like it's a long time. Like,
Yeah, usually it's less than a week.
Wow.
So when they get posted, usually they start finding homes and I've had some that I barely get posted and they're already sold. And so usually once they sell, we give like 48 hours grace that we cover feed costs and everything. And from there, we charge like a $5 or $10 a day fee just to help cover the costs, right? But when you have them here, for example, like these guys, they've been here a month, that's quite a bit of food that adds up, right? So the $50 or $75 fee doesn't cover cost anymore. We also get into a little bit of a spot with the bands where when they initially come here, these guys, for example, their fee to the band has already been paid. So I don't pay that fee up front. So the band says, here's the babies, find them a home. And they're doing their own thing. And they'll say, all of a sudden I'll get a call. And I could get told when I pick them up, I could get told a week later that, hey, the truck going to Bovary is coming on this day. Like, if you don't have them sold, we're taking them back and putting them on the truck, right?
Wow.
So that's my sort of time clock, as I say. So people who follow the page will notice I'll be like, okay, guys, clock is ticking. We have until this time. So this time around, these 4 didn't have homes. So we had people step up and help us cover costs. They help by donating money to pay their bail. So these guys all got covered. So their fee to the band was paid. So now they're here at Born Free. And right now what I'm doing is when they sell, they'll still sell at that same price.
Mhm.
We'll take out feed costs, and then the difference will go back into just a savings account, rainy day slush fund, in case we get in this position again where, hey, clock is ticking, we've got a baby left that doesn't have a home. We can use that. And we've got some amazing supporters that have helped us bail these guys out in the first place. And every little bit helps, right? Like if everybody was able to pitch in $5, right? It adds up to get these guys into a safe space.
Mhm.
That's wonderful. You've talked. I was going to ask you about where these horses are coming from, but by the way, you've already kind of answered that mostly and very beautifully. The horse you mentioned that some people surrender their horses too, and I'm wondering what's the most common reason for that, and then kind of to make it a double-barreled question. How do you choose who to say yes and who to say no to? Because I could imagine that being a little bit of a process. You're managing a lot of horses and you are under time crunches and you're hustling. So there must be, I'm sure you have to set some boundaries for yourself on who you can take in and who you can't.
Yeah. So that's the hard part, right? This last month I worked closely with Freedom's Gate. We had 14 horses surrendered. Freedom's Gate didn't have the space, and I did have the space at the time to help. So I stepped in and helped with those guys. And it was a herd that there was some health issues in a family. So that's a big one usually, is as the owner's health declines, they can't take care of them, financial or hay stress. They can't find the feed or can't afford to find the feed. And they'll ask for help. We've been lucky lately that the surrenders too coming in, people are asking for help before it's like dire situation. Yeah. The big group of 14 that we had surrendered, they all were in pretty good shape, and we were able to find them all homes quite fast. I look at ages, sort of what their backgrounds are, their health. Being Rock Creek, we are a little bit more remote. The closest vet is about 40 minutes to an hour away. Either way, pretty much that I go. One's a mobile vet, and she's based out of Grand Forks that I can have come out. If not, it's Kelowna or Okanagan Falls mobile vet. So I have to be really cautious there too, because if I take something with too big of a health concern, am I setting myself up or the horse up for failure, right? It's not the easiest to get vets out here. I've taken my advanced and emergency equine first aid, like I know the basics. And I've encountered a lot of different stuff over the years that I can handle, majority of it by myself. But when we get into bigger health issues or long-lasting health issues, it's not something I'm able to take in. So I have to look at, that kind of stuff, their age. And also I have people reaching out to me all the time. Hey, do you know of a horse that'll suit this? Not right now, but keep my ears open, right? So for example, I just had a couple of horses come in. One happened to be an older boy. He's like 25 years old. He's an Arab cross, very well broke, but doesn't enjoy a lesson program anymore. He doesn't want to be stuck in a ring anymore. He loves trail rides and stuff. So I ended up finding him a home locally with somebody I had spoke with a few weeks before. Said, hey, I'm looking for a companion horse for mine, something that might get the odd trail ride. So when I got the call about this guy, it was like, okay, this might match, right? So I sort of play matchmaker a little bit. I'll find out from people sort of what they're looking for. I have a horse that I'm helping a lady rehome, and some girls that my daughter goes to school with are looking for new horses, and this horse suits the bill. So I've reached out to a few people and might have found a match there for some of them. A few months ago, I got a call from one of the band members that on one of the trucks going to Beaufry, they had found out there was a certain horse on that truck that he's like, I've seen this horse in the past. Like, I know that this horse is actually well broke and I don't think there's any issues, but these people have directly called and shipped them directly instead of reaching out for help. But this horse, from what we understood, was broke. She's been roped off of, she's been patterned. So he reached out, he's like, hey, are you still looking for a 4-H horse for your daughter? I was like, actually, yeah, because I don't want to lose my gelding to her. She's going to take my horse. So he was like, okay, well, if you pay the meat fee, I can get this horse off the truck. And I was like, okay, do it. So her name is now Ruby. My 10-year-old has been riding her quite a bit, and they're getting to know each other, and I think they're going to be a pretty good fit. So.
Does that must be so rewarding? I can imagine that some of that matchmaking piece, like, is that one reason why you keep doing what you're doing? Like, what,
Yeah.
you know?
Like,
Yeah.
whether it's the surrenders or, yeah, my personal horses or these wildies, like, some of them, there's one that stands out in my mind right now. They've called her Sage, is her name. She's a little gray filly that I got a call that there was a hurt filly on the band land. Could I come help? So we brought her in, and I started doctoring a wound on her neck because I was like, ooh, that's pretty yucky, right? Get cleaning it out. I'm fleshing it out, and I'm like, that's pretty deep. And all of a sudden I went, oh my goodness, it's coming out the other side. She actually had been shot. She had a through and through gunshot wound in her neck, which was extremely infected, very pussy, maggots, yucky, gross. I flushed it 3 times a day. And with the wildies too, a lot of people think, oh, well, give them a shot of antibiotics. Sometimes you have to be careful when you do that, because you can actually put a shock to their system and it can kill them.
Wow.
So this girl, for example, her body was doing a pretty good job of fighting it on her own. So I used just salt water. That's it. That's all I treated her with. And I flushed that wound 2-3 times a day. And she now has a home up northern BC and is doing absolutely amazing. She looks like a whole new horse.
Wow.
So I see these horses come in and they're thin, they're full of ticks, but I see the potential in them. And so to watch them grow and progress into homes, some of these babies that I started off with are now winning ribbons and shows and competitions and doing all this stuff. So when I see these updates, it's like, yes, sweet. Like that's part of why I do this, is because of them.
Wow.
We kind of have already covered, the need that's out there for the amount of horses that you have currently. I'm wondering if you can speak to just, you mentioned northern BC, like what is the reach of your rehoming horses? Like how far are they getting rehomed to?
So, got a lot of places actually. I have some that I've got them all the way from the island. I've got quite a few on the island, the coast, all over the Okanagan, Kamloops, Merritt, out this way towards like Castlegar, Creston, pretty much all over BC, Alberta, and into the Yukon now.
Wow.
Also have a lady out of Ontario who's a big supporter. So yeah, like they're starting to travel a little further and a little further each time. Of course, hauling is an issue for any horse you buy, right? So it's looking into that kind of stuff. But yeah, we've got them a lot of places now. They spread out all over.
That's really cool. With all of these many horses that you have rehomed, I would love it if you have any standout stories of a situation that really pulled on your heartstrings that you could share with us.
Yeah. Well, we have Sage, who I spoke about. She stands out in my mind a lot. we've got a group that they were in really, really, really thin, poor condition coming off the range. And there was a mare and a foal, and they ended up going to a home on the island where both of them are now broke. One is being used for lessons and teaching children. They both are ribbon winners in shows, in dressage, and it's amazing to look at the photos, like especially of her baby, who was just so tiny, like so tiny. And now she's like just such a beautiful horse now. It's great, right? One of my own personal horses, I got him, where have I had him now? 4 or 5 years ago. When I got him, somebody had worked with him, but so he was halter broke and everything. He was a wildie originally, but there was some issues when it came to saddling him. I don't know what exactly happened, but every time you'd go to put a saddle on him, he would full on bronc show. He'd throw the saddle on his back, but that cinch would touch him and he would lose it. And the people were sort of at wit's end. They didn't know what to do to help him. So I ended up taking him and started working with him. We worked super slow. First time, of course, I wanted to just sort of see for myself. Tossed my saddle on him. The cinch touched him, and there goes my saddle. I was like, oh no. So started from the beginning. I took a super fluffy bareback pad with a big, huge, fluffy cinch, and it's got like the buckle. So I put that on him, and I do it up one notch, and I push him around the round pen. And if he wanted to buck, he could buck, do whatever, but at least he wouldn't lose it. Because when you put on a cinch, you didn't have time to tie it before he would blow. So he'd lose the saddle and know he could get away with it.
Yeah.
So with the clip, I could click it on real fast, and even if he blew, he started to figure out that it was still there. So I do it up one notch, push him around. Do it up one notch, push him around. I did this all winter when I first got him. Come spring, it got to the point where I had switched from the bareback pad to a saddle, and I switched out clasps so that I was still able to clip it on, but I was able to get it so I could cinch him.
Wow.
He'd still walk circles. It started off where he'd just walk circles around me while I cinched him, and that was fine. He's now doing great. He'll stand tied, get cinched. Last summer, he actually got used in a dude string for a lot of people, and he got some pretty good exposure and experience with new riders, and just trying to expose him to everything I possibly can.
Yeah.
That's so great. And I'm sure that I hear this where we are, and I'm sure you run into this yourself as well, but there's some stigma around feral horses, especially, but you're talking about these horses, they come in and they're feral, but then they end up being great horses for competition, for kids, for out for rides. Like it really seems pretty limitless.
Yeah, they're honestly probably one of the most versatile horse you will find, and their natural instincts and bodies. They have stronger immune systems, stronger feet. Not very often do you see a feral horse that has to have shoes in the future because of poor feet condition, because it is survival of the fittest on the range, right? If their bodies they don't get the vet out on the range if they get hurt, they have to heal themselves. If their feet can't stand up or they have soft feet, if they can't cover kilometers of ground every day for grazing, they're not going to survive. So they're naturally that much stronger. When they first come in, like with these little ones, they're very timid. You're scary. Like, you're an alien, don't touch me. And, oh, you want to feed me? Okay, I'm starting to get the hang of the hay. Oh, you want to put grain in there? That's poison. Like, they don't know what anything is, right? So to them, it's scary and it's going to hurt them. But the more time, honestly, grab a book, sit down with your coffee, and sit beside their hay pile. The more time you can spend with them, as soon as they realize that you're not out to get them or hurt them, as soon as you gain that trust, it's like that light bulb moment, put all of their trust into you, and you can ask them to do absolutely anything once they trust you. And the biggest thing is just giving them the time to learn and trust and build that. And don't push them too hard, too fast. Like, let them figure out that you're okay. And then once you do, yeah, they're absolutely amazing. A lot of our owners, we've had the same thing. Like, we had one little one a few weeks ago or a month ago. She was wild. When we had a hauler come to pick her up to take her to her new home, the hauler was like, wow, as we're trying to load her, because she's a little zoomy zoom. She is running full tilt in circles. She's like, I am not getting in that trailer. Are you kidding me? And she ran around full tilt, and we got her in the trailer and everything was good. And she went off to her new home. About 2 weeks later, I get a message. Hey, what's your mailing address? I want to send the halter back, because I halter and deworm all the babies here using a squeeze chute, because it's like the safest method of doing it. We do it super calm, super slow, get them haltered and dewormed, because when I first started this, I didn't do that. And I found that people were rushing to they want to deworm them. So they push too hard, too fast to try and get dewormer into them. Whereas if I've already put a dewormer in them, people seem to take it a little slower and give them the time to build the trust. So I'm like, wow, okay. Like, you're ready to send the halter back? She's like, oh yeah. She sends me a video of her walk up, halter this baby, halter on and off, touch this baby all over. I'm like, I sent the video to the hauler, and she was just like, that's not the same horse. She's like, wow, right? Because it's just the more time you can spend with them. And as soon as you get it, they're like a whole different horse, right? And then they start trusting, and you can do whatever. Like, yeah, that video, it's so funny, because it's like, I wish I had a video of us trying to load her that day, flying around. And yeah, even the hauler was just like, wow, like that's crazy. Like 2 weeks. Wow. Some take longer. Like, I've had one, she is the sweetest little thing now. She's like on the pony size of things. She's a little pinto. When she came in off the range, I had like 100-foot like arena. So I'm a good 100 feet away from her. And I went through the panel and I stepped into the arena. She tried to jump the fence on the other side.
Wow.
I'm like, okay, I'm like not even near you at all. I ended up bringing her to a facility, and we had her in a stall. Within 2 days, I was kissing her face.
Aww.
She just, like, light bulb switched. She went from nuts to, like, not. And from that day forward, she was the sweetest thing. And then you get some that are more standoffish. We have one right now who, she's going to take a little bit more time, right? And it's just going to be making sure you can do it safely, which is a big one. So wherever she ends up going, like, I've got a gist of the personalities from these guys, and I know that this girl is gonna need a more solid fence or a stall, a smaller area, and yeah, you can sit there and drink your coffee, good, right? Spend as much time as possible there, and she's gonna come around and be great. It's just going to take a little longer. Yeah. Then we have some that we have another little one right now who we had some people over the other day looking at them. We separated her into a small pen. At first she was like standing in a corner, like just sort of spinning in the corner, trying to get away. And the girl just stood there, just didn't move, just stood there. We were talking over the fence. Within 5 minutes, that baby walked up, sniffed her, and nudged her.
Aww.
Like, wow, okay, right? Just, you're there, but you're not pushing them, right? You're letting them figure out that you're okay.
Yeah.
Just by being in their space.
So I'm sure there's lots of listeners out there that would love to help out, but just aren't in a position to take on another horse. Are there other ways that people can get involved with supporting what you do?
So there's a couple different things, like for example, sharing our posts when we've got available. Like, for example, right now I've got the folder pinned at the top with what's available. Hey, if you can share it, the more we can get the word out and get these guys, get them homes, right? Like, if you aren't able to, maybe you know somebody in Facebook land who is, right? Or when we get into the position where we're on a ticking time clock, if you financially are able to help us bail them or help with maybe a little bit of feed costs and stuff, it takes a village, right? Like, just like kids. We all have to sort of work together. I am one person. I do this out of a passion, and I'm looking into the potential of going nonprofit and stuff like that. But as of right now, it is just me and doing this. So I know, like, I can't offer things like tax deductions and stuff like that, but just spreading the word is huge, right? The more interconnected people are, and the more people, because you might share it to somebody who might share it to somebody who knows somebody, right?
Yeah. Just on that note, so that Mira and I can do our best as well to help out here. First, we'll keep an eye and we will share your horses on our Facebook page and such. But also, do you want to take a minute to talk about any of the horses that you have right now, or that you might end up getting in over the next couple weeks? Keeping in mind that this will air in about a week to a week and a half.
Okay, so right now we have, on the property, we have 4 wild babies. 3 of them are coming yearlings. We have 2 colts and 2 fillies here right now. We have a red dun coming yearling colt. He's actually pulling on my heartstrings a little bit right now. He's gonna make somebody a nice little horse, and somebody better hurry up and take him before he ends up in my field with my personal horses. He's very solid-minded, very curious and calm. A lot, like, which is a bit of a switch for some of these, right? I was breaking ice in buckets the one day, and I had 3 buckets lined up full of water, and broke the ice out of the first one, and I'm working on the second bucket, and I'm hitting it with a sledgehammer. And he walked up and drank out of the bucket beside me. And I was like, what are you doing beside me? Like, it's weird. So yeah, he's definitely really curious and calm demeanor for a wildie. We have a coming 2-year-old Fjord Cross. He comes out of Oliver Soyas. We have quite a bit of Fjord on that range, and you can definitely see it through his markings and stuff that the Fjord is there. He's a good solid horse. He's going to make somebody a solid trail prospect or something, or mountain riding. He's a thick boy. He's also very, very calm and very curious. We've got a little, like, dark brown filly right now. She's coming 1. She's the one that I had said we had separated the other day, and yeah, within 5 minutes she was sniffing them. And so she's also very curious. Right now she doesn't seem like it unless you separate her. As she is feeding off of, we have a little Perlino, little white girl with 2 blue eyes. She's coming here, and she is spunky. And she likes to rile everybody up. So I go in there, she'll run away from me, and because she ran away, they're gonna run away. So she's the one that I said is going to take somebody with a little bit more time and patience and a solid fence. Because she did have a little incident here where she felt like I cornered her, and she jumped one of my fences. in with my personal horses. I think she might think twice about jumping a fence again. I don't know exactly what my gelding was thinking, but he didn't like the fact that she jumped the fence. And he put the run on her pretty good. And I think she'll think twice before she jumps the fence. So, yeah. But she's starting to come around. The salt lick, for example. The red dun went up, licked the salt lick within 2 seconds. That little Perolito girl stood back and snorted at it for about half an hour while everybody else licked it before she decided that she might come in there and taste this thing that everyone else is touching. So, but I find that these ones that have that more wild side, as much as it takes longer to get them to trust you, once you do, that bond is even stronger, right? And that trust level, if you build it, it's there.
Yeah. How do you manage the emotional component of all of this? I can just, I mean, even as we're talking, like I can kind of feel within myself my heartstrings getting pulled. I can't imagine what it's like on a kind of daily basis.
Yeah, it's hard sometimes. There's certain ones definitely that stick with me a little more, especially ones like, for example, Sage with the gunshot. I spent a lot of time with that horse and doctoring her and getting her healthy. And so it was hard to see her go, but at the same time, I'm like, I know that I'm setting them up for a better future. I know I can't keep them all. I would love to, but I know I can't keep them all. Part of my coping is, like, honestly, kudos to the girls who can name them, but I can't do it. They might come up with, like, I might say random little nicknames like baby girl or princess or whatever, but I refuse to name them. That's part of my own coping. So as for labeling them, you'll notice it'll be like N1 or whatever. So the letter, well, I started having trouble tracking them. So what I did is the group would come in and it'd be like group A, and it'd be 1 through whatever of that group. The next group comes in, they're group B. Right. So that was my way to help track them and for people to be able to be like, well, I'm interested in this one, right? So to label them without naming them, because I find if I name them, I get more attached to them. I'm really, really proud of my daughter. She's 10. And she does a lot with me with the wildies, and she's out there all the time. And she too, she's handled all of this really, really, really well. Like even her new mare, when we got her, it was like, Kate, you're not allowed to name her. That was our first rule when she came in, because I've been told the horse is broke, but do I really know? I have no idea. Is she broke enough that my 10-year-old can ride her? Like, yeah, she's a confident 10-year-old, but is this a dangerous horse, right? So she was not allowed to get attached to her potential horse until I was confident that we were going to keep her around, right? So that's been our coping, is the not naming them. That's a big one, because I find, if I've named them, then they end up
there forever.
Somebody please help me find little red dun a home.
Oh my goodness. Well, and so in order to help little red dun find a home so that they don't stay in your field, what process would someone go through to contact you, and then what's your process for rehoming?
Okay, so most of my stuff, I'm actually in the process of working on a website right now, but most of what I do right now is through Facebook. So Born Free Equine, there's a group on Facebook. You can join the group. You can message me directly or through the group, whatever. There is a file that I've created on Born Free Equine's group, and it's sort of a read before purchase, and it's just a little bit of a rundown about the horses. Like, we do our best to try and say, hey, like, this is the personality of this one, or this could potentially be how big it'll grow. But they are sold as is, and I can't guarantee that they're going to be 17 hands high or that they're bred a certain way. But I do my best, and it sort of gives a little bit of info on that kind of stuff. If people are wanting vaccinations or gelding or a pre-purchase exam on a wildie is not as easy to complete, as you can't really touch them as well. We do have a facility set up so that if you wanted to have them gelded or vaccinated here before they leave, we work with a mobile vet out of Okanagan Falls who meets us at a property in Oliver that we use. And we can safely, using the chute, do medical treatments as needed. And yeah, a lot of what I do is by talking to people. I'll talk to them about their setup, their experience, sort of what they're looking for. I think one thing that sets me apart from others is if somebody is willing to take these babies and spend the time and work with them, if you turn around in a year, 2 years, and you decide you want to sell that horse, I'm not against that. I'd love it if you kept in touch with me. I try my best to keep in touch, and hey, if the new owner will send me some updates and stuff like that. I don't have like a clause in place against rehoming. These horses right now don't have any chance. So coming to me, they're given a chance, and it's somebody else giving them a chance as well. And if you can halter break them, start them, break them, and make them into a good horse, and you want to sell that horse, you've prepared it better for its future, right? The other thing is I do have an open door policy. I can't per se do refunds on the price, because that money does, like I said, go into cost and what it costs to bail them out. But if you get in a position where you can't keep them anymore, give me a call. I can work something out with you, and I can take them back and help find them a different home that'll suit it better, whatever the circumstance. Like, I'm no questions asked, right? Like, if you just decide, hey, I don't want to do this anymore, hey, call me, right? We can work something out. Or yeah, if you have put in the time, I know it takes time. Like, breaking horses doesn't happen overnight. You've now fed them. I know what cost is all about, right? So if you've worked with them and want to cover your costs and sell, go ahead, right? Like, you've potentially made them a better horse for their future. There's also homes out there that per se can't take a baby or can't take something unhandled. So we have a few people that we work with that are interested, and we're completely open to this with, yeah, trainers and stuff. You want to buy one and work with it, train it, and sell it? And if that's strictly what you want to do with it, I'm fine with that, right? Because now you've given that baby a branch to a bunch of different potential homes, right? Because somebody might not be able to take an unhandled horse. Well, they could take something that's halter broke or started, right? So that helps a lot, I think, in the process of it all. There's only so many people who can take a baby.
Kind of an interesting question, sort of sidetrack, but when horses come to your facility, what does integration look like?
Okay, so I've got some different setups here. Like, as they are wild, all of my stuff is like interconnected, right? I can't just lead them out of a trailer and put them where I want them to go. If I want them to go somewhere, I have to either have like runways, alleyways, be able to back a trailer right up to wherever they're gonna go. So I have like a loading chute that I use, and it's like a panel, so it goes right down and straight to the trailer, right? So they come off the trailer, they go down an alleyway, and they go into a pen, and it's like a quarantined area. They don't have contact with other horses on the property, the facility in Oliver where they get held as well. It's a quarantine property. So these guys, I treat them like they're in quarantine at all times, right, when they're here. Because especially until they've got to a certain point, like, for example, these guys now have been here a long time. I'm not as quarantined with them. So they're in with a mare right now. There's actually a mare in with the little babies. And so they've been moved out of the one pen to a pen over from that. They're connected by an alleyway, but there's sort of our initial pen, and that's quarantine. And because I deworm them when they come to the property, that pen is a wormy pen, right? So once they hit a certain point, if they've been here, they'll move out of that pen, right? They clear it and they're good to go. They can move into another area. I've got a couple different pens and setups for where they can go. I've got my round pen, and that's where I do a lot of sorting with them. So everything's all sort of interconnected. I can push them pretty much from one place right into the round pen, close it off, and it's got like a pen off of the side that I can sort the babies. So if I have 4 in there right now, if somebody was coming to pick up or had one leaving, well, I gotta get that horse apart from the group, right? So I use that for sorting, and then we can back a trailer right up and load them directly that way. Normally they aren't here long enough to get too close to many other horses here, right? I do my best to try and keep them in quarantine pretty much the whole time they're here, except this time, because nobody are here this long. But yeah, so these guys have got a little bit of greeting in, but other than that, they stay in like a quarantine area.
Very, very interesting.
Yeah.
I'm finding this quite inspiring. One thing I liked that you said earlier on, so I'm jumping back a topic or two, was it sounds like your system of rehoming and taking horses on is empathetic and judgment free. Like, I like that, you know, like I really like the not holding judgment, especially with the people that you're dealing with, especially with your horse surrenders or people who feel the need to bring horses back to you. You end up being kind of a safe, comfortable place for people to talk to and bring their problems, rather than these horses ending up staying in positions and places that could potentially be damaging to them longer than they should, because you're open and you have empathy and you're not coming forward with judgment to these horse owners who feel the need to surrender their horses due to their circumstances. These horses end up in a better place faster because you provide that service.
Another thing I have done too in regards to that would be, for example, we had a baby that went a couple years ago up to the Prince George area. Well, that's a long way away from me, right? She found she was getting a little overwhelmed. That was before I also started deworming. So she was like, I want to deworm, but I can't get near it. And she was starting to get a little bit defeated. So she's like, well, I think maybe it might be best if I send him back. I was like, okay, is it just that you're feeling like, and I wanted to feel it out too. Like, are you feeling just that you don't want it? That's fine. Or if you were to have some help, would that change things, right? So I've made a lot of connections over the years to people and other people who have wildies too, right? Like, I have multiple homes in that area. So, hey, if I reach out to somebody who's had great success with theirs, would you want to talk to them and maybe work with them a little, right? So trying to connect people too, like to say, hey, got somebody up in your area who could use a hand. Like, would you be willing to go give them a hand? Because that might be a first option, right? Before they have to give up.
Yeah.
That's wonderful, and nice that you have all of those connections.
Yeah. There's a lot of people out there.
Yeah, integral to this whole system. For someone out there who is thinking about turning their passion for rescue into a regular thing, someone who's wanting to do what you're doing, any tips or words of caution?
Okay, so I think the biggest one would be make sure, like, don't put yourself in a position where you're overwhelmed either, right? Biggest caution one, right, is you take on too much. Okay, even right now, like even myself, I've been doing this a while. I've got a pretty good support system, but the fact that these wildies have been here this long and they normally aren't, my feed costs and stuff, like that's something you have to consider, right? If you're taking in surrenders and all of a sudden there's a medical issue, are you, I don't want to see somebody out there sink themselves, right? Because you can't help them if you can't help yourself, right? Like if you can't feed them if need be, or pay a medical bill, try not to get yourself in those positions. And as hard as it is to say no sometimes, you might have to, right? Having support around you for what you're doing. It isn't just you against the world. Like, yes, I do a lot of this on my own, but like without the support of my family, I couldn't do this, right? Like if my family was like, you're dumb, don't do that. Like, why are you doing this, right? Or when times are tougher and hey, some of the cost comes out of my own pocket, right? If my family was like, oh, well, and it caused animosity, I wouldn't be able to do that, right? So you need to make sure you have support around you from your family, that you're able to say no if need be. Try not to take on too much. And also like trying to build your connections too. So if you have somebody, we've had a few people also offer to foster and train and stuff. So we actually have a lady who I've been talking with about that she would consider taking in a baby to train and rehome, right? And with, for example, these ones that are here, because of some gracious donations, their bail's paid. So hey, if she wants to home them and work with them and get them to the point where they're suitable for another home, awesome, right? And yeah, just try and, I don't know how to explain it. Yeah, connections are a big one, support, and yeah, make sure you need to cover yourself too.
Good answers.
Yeah, some great advice in there. Yeah. How can people find you and get in touch with you? This is kind of the part where you get to promote yourself a little bit.
Okay, so my group on Facebook is Born Free Equine. I'm just looking right now to see exactly what the web link is. I think it's like www.facebook.com/Born Free Equine. I also have bornfreeequine@hotmail.com. It's born.free.equine@hotmail.com, so you can get a hold of me by email. My phone number is also 250-485-2028. Give me a call. I'm more than welcome to talk to you. Text me, call me, message me on Facebook. Hopefully have the website up and running soon. And yeah, for any updates on what's available, everything's on our Facebook.
If once you get the website up, send us the link and we will post it on our Facebook page.
Awesome.
Too. So yeah, so you know, people out there listening, keep an eye on our Facebook page too, and for that website. Cambie, this has been a treat and inspiring and pulling on our heartstrings. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it was such a pleasure. And I think, Mira, is that a wrap?
That's a wrap.
If you want more Friends on Horses, you can find us on Facebook at Friends on Horses Podcast.
Check it out for all the latest and greatest horsey news.
You can find us on the web at friendsonhorsespodcast.com.
Or Instagram at friendsonhorses_podcast.
Like what you hear? Help us quit our hay jobs by supporting Friends on Horses. You can support us by rating our episodes on iTunes.
Becoming an ongoing sponsor through Patreon.
Or simply by spreading the word about our show.
Have some feedback?
We'd love to hear from you.
Contact us via email at friendsonhorses@gmail.com.
Thanks for joining us.
Until next time.